capital sees a 50% rise in shoplifting. The Met Police take new steps to tackle it, but shopkeepers question whether the penalties are tough enough.
Police recorded 530,000 shoplifting offences in 2025. The real figure is close to 8 million, with many incidents going unreported. That's dozens of incidents a minute. Around 1/5 occurred in London. Billions of pounds disappearing from store shelves each year. Everything is accelerating for one simple reason: there are no consequences. If you want to understand why the system allowed this and where Britain is being pushed next, make sure you're subscribed. Those numbers do not live on paper, they are visible on the streets. Beginning inside major stores like Sainsbury's, in a single day, multiple branches across London and its surrounding areas are visited repeatedly by the same familiar groups. They do not run, they do not hide, they do not move cautiously, they walk straight in, take what they want and leave through the front doors. Staff stand and watch. Alarms sound, then stop. Everything is over in minutes. According to retailers themselves, large stores are losing goods worth thousands of pounds every day at individual locations. Spirits, over-the-counter medicine, cosmetics, razors, batteries, premium food items, products that are easy to resell and leave little trace. Outside the stores, the story continues. On shopping streets, people watch shelves empty during peak hours. Phones come out, no one looks shocked. What once counted as a criminal act has become a routine scene of daily life. Not a riot, not chaos, but a new order, one where theft happens openly. Police are aware of this, but their response is tightly constrained by how the system operates. Calls are logged, priority levels are assessed. In many cases, shoplifting is not considered serious enough to trigger an immediate response. When officers do arrive, it is often after everything is already over. They review CCTV, make notes, and leave. Not because they do not want to do more, but because procedures do not allow officers to exceed their authority. Even when arrests are made, the outcome rarely deters further offending. Many individuals are recorded committing the same offence dozens of times within months. Arrested, released, then returning to the same stores. Staff recognise them instantly. The only thing that changes is attitude. More defiant, less concealed, less afraid. Shop owners begin to speak out. Not with anger, but with figures. They talk about security costs spiralling out of control. Cameras, shutters, guards, alarms together adding up to tens of thousands of pounds per store each year. Estimates suggest the average UK household pays around £80 more per month as retailers raise prices to offset losses. Staff quit out of fear. Customers avoid streets that were once busy. One closure leads to another. Streets grow darker. Foot traffic falls. And that in turn makes crime even easier to repeat. This is where criticism stops targeting individual thefts and focuses instead on how the system handles them. When repeated offences do not lead to escalating consequences, when reporting does not lead to clear action, when arrest does not lead to removal from the streets, the system has unintentionally sent a clear message: low risk, high reward. The public senses this long before it is officially acknowledged. Trust is lost not because of a single policy, but because of years of small decisions. Each delay, each downgrade of seriousness, each time shoplifting was treated as a secondary issue. The result is what we see today inside major stores in broad daylight, in front of everyone. What retailers describe privately is now backed by their own data. Industry surveys show that roughly 7 out of 10 retailers believe police are not doing enough to stop organised shoplifting, forcing businesses to fund their own response. Across the sector, spending on private security, intelligence teams and loss prevention systems has climbed into the billions, with some major chains allocating tens of millions annually just to slow the losses. For smaller operators, the figures are devastating. Owners speak of spending £50, £60, even £80,000 a year on cars and equipment, only to see theft continue at the same pace. One convenience store owner summed it up bluntly: the money spent on security now exceeds the profit the shop was ever designed to make. Behind the scenes, enforcement statistics tell a similar story. While theft incidents have surged, the number of people charged has fallen sharply over the past decade. Prosecutions have dropped to a fraction of what they once were, even as offending becomes more frequent and more organised. Police estimates suggest that around a quarter of all shoplifting incidents are now linked to coordinated gangs rather than individuals acting alone. These groups operate across counties, moving store to store, following lists, targeting specific products, and using spotters to map cameras and staff movements. This is no longer random theft. It is logistics. Investigations have revealed how these networks function. Teams travel nationwide, hitting dozens of branches of the same retailer in quick succession. High-value everyday goods are taken in bulk, stored in temporary stash locations, and then funneled into resale markets. Some items reappear at car boot sales, others are sold through informal wholesalers or exported abroad. Retail intelligence units tracking these movements describe them as mobile operations that treat the UK as a low-risk environment. The reason is simple: the likelihood of meaningful interruption is low. Police officers involved in these cases acknowledge the frustration. Large-scale operations are launched, sometimes involving dozens of forces. Warehouses are uncovered. Arrests are made, but even then the disruption is often temporary. Ringleaders disappear. Lower-level runners are replaced. Within weeks, new crews appear using the same methods, often in the same towns. Officers describe the situation as trying to empty a river with a bucket. At street level, the consequences are immediate. Shop staff stop intervening altogether. Training now emphasises withdrawal rather than prevention. Workers are told to protect themselves, not the stock. Assaults on retail workers have increased, yet many go unreported because staff believe nothing will come of it. In some stores, teenagers steal openly, laughing when challenged, fully aware that the response will be minimal. This behaviour spreads quickly once it is seen to succeed. The public notices the change. Customers watch theft happen and see no response. Confidence erodes quietly. People begin to avoid certain streets after dark. Parents worry about teenagers working late shifts. Elderly shoppers stop visiting local stores altogether. These are not dramatic reactions. They are small adjustments repeated daily that slowly drain life from neighbourhoods. As stores close, the damage compounds. Empty units attract vandalism. Reduced foot traffic makes remaining shops more vulnerable. Councils lose business rates. Jobs disappear. What began as shoplifting becomes an accelerator for decline. Retail leaders warn that once the high street enters this spiral, recovery becomes exponentially harder. At this point, criticism turns unavoidable. The issue is not whether shoplifting is wrong. Everyone agrees on that, but the issue is how the system responds to it. For years, policy decisions have lowered the practical consequences for repeat offenders, while failing to replace them with effective alternatives. Thresholds were raised, penalties softened, enforcement was deprioritised. Each change seemed manageable on its own. Together they reshape behaviour. When repeat offending does not trigger escalation, offenders learn the limits quickly. When arrest does not lead to removal from the street, deterrence collapses. When reporting does not result in visible action, businesses stop reporting. The system begins to run on partial data, reinforcing the illusion that the problem is smaller than it is. This feedback loop benefits no one except those exploiting it. Public trust suffers most. People stop believing that everyday rules are enforced fairly or consistently. They see theft treated as background noise while they absorb the costs through higher prices and reduced services. They hear announcements of crackdowns that change little on the ground. Over time, cynicism replaces expectation. This is not a failure of shop workers who step back, nor of officers working within constraints. It is a failure of management, of priorities, and of a framework that allowed repetition to become normal. The system did not collapse suddenly. It thinned quietly until it no longer resisted. What is unfolding now is the predictable result of those choices. Open theft, routine intimidation, high streets hollowed out not by competition but by neglect. The question facing Britain is no longer whether shoplifting is out of control. It is whether the system responsible for controlling it is willing to change course. If this looks familiar where you live, it is because the same mechanisms are operating there too. And until consequences return, confidence will not